Let me show you what's going on up there. Oh, right. This is when I reached the graduate. No, you haven't. It's not good. You won't be getting the phase, so you don't document it. Let me go over here and sit, hey. All right. See you before we go.
I would like to start the afternoon by introducing a man who not only worked with my grandmother, but became a lifelong friend. As an esteemed activist and mentor who currently serves as the director of Seton Hall University's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Leadership Program, and in 2016 received the President's Lifetime Achievement Award from President Barack Obama, I would like to introduce Reverend Dr. Forrest Pritchett.
that which was stolen. In that context, many of us know that a human being is more than the water, the little bit of dust that God created. God had to breathe life into mankind for it to exist. And God let His Spirit inform that entire process. We believe in programs such as this, that we acknowledge that Spirit that was with us. Julia, Gaetano, Miller. In that context, we're going to do now an affirmation and a libation, which will identify the characteristics that we found so valuable in our comrade, colleague, mother, and professor. What I will ask you to do when I raise my hands, be that synchronized, I'm going to ask you to give the affirmation, Ashe. So I'm going to let you practice that for a minute. This is going to be a participatory community celebration of our good sister, our mother, niece, friend. Ready? Let's do Ashe. We thank you, God, for the Spirit which was in you. So I'm asking you all to now please stand. Water is the essence of life. Try not taking in a lot for a long period of time. See what happens to you. You know, water, even as water vapor. We live with the consequences of germ warfare presently. Water is so significant. You know, many Africans during the Middle Passage, unless they had arrived, their life was so treacherous for them that they decided that they would, as you would say in modern terminology, just clock out. If they couldn't get back to the motherland, they would get to the motherland through the water. Many of them simply jumped off the ships or walked into water looking for their release and their liberation. So we will now identify what I believe are going to be characteristics of Judy's walk in this life. I will drop water in symbolic acknowledgement of that, then I will raise my hands. Judy was a virtuous woman, full of faithfulness, full of reverence, full of strength, full of endurance. We say, in honor of her life, Ashe. Judy was charitable. She was a provider. She was well-groomed and well-dressed on occasion. She was the mother, and the wife of a very good man, Don Miller. She was honorable in all that she did. She was so wise. She was kind to all who came under her charge. To affirm her life, we say Ashe. Judy Miller is praiseworthy. She helped many to obtain and to excel in the space that they occupied. And on many occasions, she would finish a sentence or if she had a difficult moment by saying, "Thank you, Lord." So we know that she was a God-fearing woman. To that value, we say Ashe. Judy, we know that in spirit you're looking down upon us. We are here to honor your life and your legacy and your impact. We hope that all that we do, and we pray that all we do, is worthy in thy eyes. God bless you for being with us. Amen. You may be seated. I am pleased to now bring to the podium, representing the university, the Executive Vice President of the University and the University Provost, Dr. Katia Passarini. She will be followed by Representative Dr. Jeffrey Cogman, representing the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. Hear ye all.
you, Dr. Preacher. We welcome Dr. Miller's family, friends, students, friends of friends, to Seton Hall University. Today, in our audience, I acknowledge the many friends, but I also would like to acknowledge a close friend of Dr. Miller's, who we tribute online, Dr. Zachary Yamba. Dr. Yamba served as a member of the Seton Hall University Board of Regents for 25 years, and I had the pleasure to work with him for 1 year before he became Regent Emeriti. He was a member of the Seton Hall University Class of 65 and President Emeritus of Essex County College, where he served for 30 years, from 1980 to 2010. As the Chief Academic Officer of Seton Hall University, I wish to recognize the pioneering work of our Black Studies Center under the administration of our 16th President of Seton Hall University, Monsignor Fay. Monsignor Fay was also responsible for the emergence of the Puerto Rican Institute and for opening a Pioneers Hall, which was the first residence hall for women. I also wish to acknowledge the many contributions of African civilizations towards civilizations, and now this knowledge is vital in shaping and also reshaping today Western thought. In 1970, Dr. George Jackson was appointed as the first director of Black Studies, and Dr. Julia Miller was appointed as the first associate director, and 2 years later she was the director. With combined support from Monsignor Thomas Fay, then University President, and Bishop John Doherty, President Emeritus. This Center for Black Studies offers students the choice of a certificate or a degree-bearing option of study, which included a Bachelor of Arts in Black Culture or Black Community Studies. And this academic center also focused on research of issues most critical to Black scholars throughout the world, and developed new courses that would explore the full vitality of the contribution of Black American thought and action throughout the African diaspora, in Africa, Europe, the Caribbean, and the Americas. The center continued to prosper through the pioneering work of Dr. Julia Miller as the long-term guiding director of Black Studies programs at Seton Hall University from 1972 to 1983. And Dr. Pritchett tells me that she was one of the deans of the center. The center then was composed of 8 faculty and staff and 15 adjunct faculty. It occupied a unique space that contained faculty offices, a library, a study room, and a safe cultural space for the students. It was a center, a creative gravitational point where faculty and students would come together. And they would discuss many progressive educational ideas, such as, for example, giving students academic credits for their engagement in urban communities, which now is the way we do education today. And also for faculty in the center to teach college-level courses in community centers. Those ideas, 2 decades later, will become really center of the American higher education system. Many world and national leaders were also honored by the center, and many were awarded honorary doctorates by the university through the intersection of the center. Dignitaries that received degrees included Michael Manley, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Alex Haley, the author of the autobiography of Malcolm X and Boots, Jill Noble, creator of the Emmy Award-winning TV series for ABC News, Like It Is, and James Foreman of the Student of Violin Coordinating Committee, and many, many, many more. In 1987, Dr. Miller received the Seton Hall's highest award, the Bishop Bernard McQueen Dr. Miller was also the internal consultant. She was asked to return as a consultant after retirement to develop an institutionalized mechanism to place all of our students into community volunteers assignments. In 1989, she received a Fulbright Fellowship to teach at Wuhan University in China, and it is during that period that Tiananmen Square saw the pro-democracy protests that were occurring, and students were boycotting any university classes, except for, of course, on the civil rights movement. On behalf of a grateful Seton University, we're here today to acknowledge the legacy of Dr. William Miller. Thank you.
Friends, good afternoon. My name is Jeff Todman, I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and College of Sciences. I've been asked to say a few words on behalf of the Shoemaker and the college in honor of Dr. Miller. Is that better, Bob? Yeah? Should I start from the beginning? I think I started with good afternoon. I'm Jeff Taubman. I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at the college, and I've been asked to say a few words in honor of Dr. Miller on behalf of the college. Professor Miller left Seton Hall a legacy so rich and so important that I'm not quite sure how we can fully honor it. And perhaps all of us at the university and in the community more broadly should leave this tribute to Dr. Miller with this question in our minds. How can we honor this great legacy? Her work to found and direct Black studies at Seton Hall, listed in the Africana Studies program, is in my view some of the most important work that's ever been done at Seton Hall.
dictionary yet. We'll have Dr. Miller's oldest son, Eric, for his comments.
Thank you all for coming. I've been thinking about this, obviously, for quite a long time, and struggling with it. I feel that I have failed to be able to put into words what my mother meant to me. You start off, your mother is everything, and she never really stops being everything. You have to go back, and when you really need your mother, you have to have, she's the only one who will do. And so that's really all I've ever been able to get to as far as what are the words. And so I'm not going to try any farther because I've tried and tried. But part of the reason I'm up here is my brother and I are going to talk about her life. And I'm going to talk about the early part of her life. And what made Judy Judy. And a lot of it was in the slideshow earlier. My mother was born into a family that was wall-to-wall love, joy, fun, laughter, noise. One of the noisiest families you ever want to meet. And she had 4 brothers and 2 sisters. She was the last. So she had all of the benefit of that family. She led a charmed life. And that was the first charm to it, being born into that family. And those brothers and sisters were supplemented by those brothers and sisters' friends who were more brothers and sisters. She used to talk about, it wasn't until her teens before she knew who was a real biological brother and who was just a brother from another mother. Sometimes she didn't even know her oldest brother's real name until she was 15. He was just Geets. And I'm not even sure, no, I know it's true. The second blessing that she had, and my Aunt Olga told me this story, was she was born in 1928, right before the Depression. And the family was doing pretty well. And they were next door neighbors to a school teacher who had no children and was not married. And that was Gladys Weeks, my mother's godmother and our grandma Gladys. And my Aunt Olga tells a story. My Aunt Olga was 9 years older than my mother, is 9 years
spoiled her. In some cases, it was hard for my mother because her brothers and sisters weren't being spoiled, and she felt guilty sometimes because she had gifts that they didn't have. Um, uh, the other thing is she was a papa's girl, so their household was very dominated by mama and men, my mother's grandmother. So it was a very matriarchal household, and Papa was sometimes on the sidelines. But she saw him there, and he saw her, and he taught her. He was from Venezuela. He spoke Spanish, his first language, and he took her to meetings of the Hispanic community in New York. Often it was politics that was being discussed, and that's how that was her initiation into political thinking. And our grandfather, Papa, was self-educated, but he was very well educated. He did a good job of educating himself. He was well read, and he was a writer. He was creative. He was always curious and always learning, and that rubbed off on her. So she became active while she was still in high school. And in elementary school and high school, she was very good student. She skipped years, and she went to Brooklyn College at a time when, although Brooklyn College maybe wasn't given the credit that it deserved, it was a really good school. And she learned from the best. Often people who were not acknowledged as being the best, Jewish and other people who were marginalized at the time, and that's the only place they could get work, but they were brilliant, and she had the opportunity to learn with them, and as well as students who didn't have money to go anywhere else, but they had the minds. And so it was a rich environment. It was while she was at Brooklyn College that she met our father. And she was 18 and he was 23. And the story goes, it was love at first sight for him. And she was kind of skeptical. They went to a dance in Harlem separately. I think my Uncle Rick was her escort, and my father was with some friend of a friend as an escort. And the story he tells is that she was wearing a tiara, and he saw her across the room, and it's the classic story. He had to talk to her. When he talked with her, my father was prematurely balding, and she kept on looking over his shoulder for his wife, who must have been there somewhere. So she was
text message.
I want to
Yeah, is that
truly
for you?
thank Seton Hall University on
Can you improve the audio?
I don't know to do that.
13,
I'm doing it from my
Oh, I understand. Yes. It's a live stream, so
yeah, it's a live stream. Because it's live now.
yeah. I guess that the audience can't hear.
Oh, they can't hear?
Yeah, so it's very difficult. You might want to turn up the volume all the way, and then maybe add a boom microphone.
I felt like I owned the place.
Let me see something.
And Brenda was there. Have to thank Brenda for everything from then to now.
You don't have like a boom microphone that sticks up like this. No.
Yeah.
I might be the only way.
My mother's achievements at Seton Hall, many of them
Just turned it up. As long as that would help.
That's your.
I think that's me, bro.
That's the truth. Let's get real. That's the truth. My mother
Okay,
had
that boom, I guess you
experience
have to
in
do
the
the
fight,
best you can.
Yeah, because what happens is
whatever
I'm
work
just
was
getting
necessary.
from
But so was
the
Brenda.
audio here. I don't
And
have
that's,
to, you know.
and she needed
This is
a
the first time
partner
that
in
I'm
that
actually doing
work.
it.
Oh yeah.
And Brenda was always
So I
there.
understand. I'll just convey the message.
I have to thank
Yeah.
Forrest also. Forrest came a little bit later, but not much. And Forrest joined that struggle as an equal. And my mother would always say, talk to Forrest, talk to Forrest. And I should have taken the advice of my dad. And people who come after at Seton Hall, and who were here then and are gone, the fights that were fought were good fights, and she loved that work. Greg and I were talking last night about, about that, and she was almost never really stressed. I think the kinds of things that she was doing would stress most people out, but she was built for this. And it was rare that it was something that she would not actually enjoy, you know? And so, one of the tributes that came in was thanking her for that work. To her, it wasn't work, it was like, and she was grateful for that opportunity. We're grateful for it. We're grateful to Seton Hall. So thank you. Seton Hall and make it the best in the state. That's not a small thing. You all have to understand that. You know, those who are not in academia should know the academic fights are real. And to carve out a space at Seton Hall University, and to have Gil Noble, you all, if you don't know Gil Noble, go back and see Gil Noble. Like it is, his television program, the most dynamic program in the country. Huh? To have him come here and teach classes at Seton Hall, to give Betty Shabazz an honorary degree, Alex Haley an honorary degree, Alex Haley got his first honorary doctorate here at Seton Hall University, to bring Michael Manley on this campus, Mr. Michaud bookstore in Harlem, to give him an honorary doctorate. So when I look back, I look like, this is a deep thing. And so for me, I'm in this position, but it's not my position. It really is. It's the alumni's position. It's those K performance position. It really isn't my position. And I have a duty to do the best I can to keep this thing going. And if I can do just a quarter of what Dr. Miller was able to do, then I've done my job. So I just want to thank the family for sharing her with us. She was a brilliant woman. She deserves our respect and our admiration. Thank you.
I think when I was asked to say a few words, and I think on the program it says everybody has 2 minutes. None of us really could take 2 minutes to talk about Judy, Julia, as I used to call her, all the time. There are so many things that we could talk about, but they said make it personal. So the personal part for me is we always joke, for those of some of our alums who are here, know that one of our faculty members, Jeanette, has come on. We always talk about our ages. And Jeanette was 30 years older than me. Judy was 20 years older than me. And on September the 3rd, she would have been 93. And I was 73 in May. So we all talk about our ages. We talk about our kids. We talk about our neighbors. We always would give homage to all of those individuals. The reason why we were here, the reason that we were here is we became parents to so many. And I'm looking out now, and I'm looking at the faces of some of those graduates, and it just fills my heart that they are here because of the love that she shared with all of us. Although she could have been our moms, she was the mother. For those of us who are here, will tell you about the chili dinners at our house. That was for the students. It was for them that she did what she did. All of these posters that you see, some of the faces that you see, some of them are here. And even one of them, I was in one of those as well. Because Judy was and is, will continue to be a fighter. We're still fighting here. We haven't stopped. We're not going to stop. Because that would then not lead all of those things that she tried to give to us. It would leave it in the dark, and we don't want that. Because we want all of the efforts that she showed us to continue to shine. So for those of us that have children, grandchildren, you have to let them know that they are our shoulders, that because of you, because of the individuals we stood on her shoulders. We are continuing to stand on her shoulders. For all of those students who are here now, I see you. And I can't call all of your names right now. Yes, I can. But I would just like for all of those who, underneath the tutelage of Julia, you some of those conversations that we had. I said, thank you for that. And thank you to we almost delivered. But I just look to the Miller family that they have had this memorial service here for her, because it is for her and it is for all of us working. And I just want to say thank you for lending her to us for a brief number of years. Thank you so much.
Former students, they can say that faculty, but I don't think we title name, not sort of annotate this, so that no one really come up with anything with their highest achievement has been, their mind of facing. You can see Representative State Government is the east of your Judy, and Dr. Jerry Miller, Dr. Jerry Washington, former student, but also Jerry retired from the CE staff, State Department of Human Services, like her career at it's been here, just retired CBS news executive, Dr. Sales, has an infant in his home and lives in New York State, and has chosen not to be with us due to the infant moving back and forth and coming in. So we're going to have one of our students, who was one of the co-leaders of the concern for the Fort, Christopher Rand, who about to start his hopefully doctoral studies in Latin American studies, perhaps at NYU. We got a statement from Dr. Sales, who's the former assistant director of Follow Medicine at Atlanta, as it says here, Professor Emeritus, College of Art and Science, Department of Political Science, Professor Dan. I also from political science. I also want to give a shout out to the young men sitting in the front row here in the class of 1982 and some more. And within the last 48 hours, I had one of those emergency calls from Britain. You know, Britain. Calls from property and listen. And some business school graduate from Seton Hall in 1982. Wall Street executive retired, Olympian retired, currently holds the world record. Running over the age of 50 and running the quarter mile. What was your event? Half mile or quarter?
800 and 1500.
800 meters.
Yeah.
And 1500 meters. But he is now also owning a media company and has never done a stream before. But feeling the pressure from the other end of the line, the guy who called him has volunteered to do his first official streaming event. So I'm on the Texas telling people who love him, and he's relocated himself to the front so they won't even pick up. So give him a round of applause. Coach John, I gave up this in the context of the Olympics. Seton Hall has produced outstanding track runners from around the world. Represented Seton Hall, did one represented various countries. We'll now have those speakers, as I announced in that order, to come forward to the vote. Thank you.
So which of these mics?
That one.
This one?
Yes.
Okay. I'm the side. Yeah. I'm not here to speak as a politician, you'd be very happy to know. Although I did promise Eric that if I did, we would be here tomorrow. So, this is my sister Terry Bruin. She's also Judy's niece. And we are here to tell you a little bit about Judy. To what We gotta get our little props together here. Yeah. And those of you who know Judy, yeah, and if you showed up with a bottle of red wine, yeah. We didn't rehearse this. Okay. We're channeling our authentic and take off from Ghana. Okay. And a gift from Aunt Judy, and I forgot where it was from. Okay. So, we're going to talk about our. You're going to have to relax. All right. We're going to talk about who our Aunt Judy was, and this is for the benefit of her nieces and nephews. And my children and grandchildren who happen to be here in the audience. So we're going to talk about the kind of Aunt Judy wasn't, and we're going to talk about the kind of aunt that she was. Saint Julia, she wasn't. Opinionated and respected. She respected your opinions even when they didn't coincide with hers. Julia Childs and Martha Stewart. How many of you remember those burnt dinners? Because she'd rather be in the living room than the kitchen. And you would smell something and think, Aunt Judy, is it ready? And she would go running in and, but one of her best dishes, and perhaps someone here can remember what it was called, was her even amounts of soy sauce and Chinese chicken. We never got over the senior moment yesterday. It wasn't a moment, it was like a couple of days. Okay. The kind of aunt that takes you on trips, nah. By going to visit her, sitting in her living room around that coffee table that was piled with books and articles and pictures, and she was always happy to tell you the stories behind them. Not a better way to learn history, or to learn about your family, or to learn about yourself. So Mila was sharing the other day how one of our aunts took her for her first bra. That wasn't Aunt Judy. That's true. But she was always willing to let us wave her closet. And Terry, Kathy, and I, we have some great pictures that we couldn't find, but pictures of us dressed up in sometimes a sheet, sometimes a fancy dress. Her closet was amazing. And then, of course, you had the benefit of hearing the story behind whatever piece of clothing you decided to wear. And we would go outside on the street in these clothes and parade up and down and storage. As well as long way.
Marley's wearing one.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Marley. A surrogate parent, she wasn't. One of the best things about Aunt Judy was that no matter your age, your background, your reference, she respected you. And while we did not always agree, I always knew that she respected my opinion. And I learned from her how to respect, and love people. So one of the things that I really got to know my Aunt Judy the last few years, and I would stop by her house in the afternoon and have some wine. And I could share with her some of my deepest thoughts. I could share with her some of my concerns. I would share with her what was going on at school. I'm a teacher, and we would talk a lot about education. And art teacher, yes, and an artist. And so we talked about that and how my Uncle Don would love some of the work that I was doing. But she was a sounding board for whatever it was that was going on. So the best advice that we can give, and she gave me this advice when I lived down the street from Reynolds Place, a couple blocks from Seton Hall. And she would come and have lunch with me often when she first started working here. And I was struggling with staying at a job that I really loved as a public health nurse in East Orange, or staying home when I had my second child, who happens to be here in the audience, her two daughters. And she said to me, you know, life is long, it's unpredictable. You can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. And that advice was golden to me and has helped me in determining my path. Back to work, out of work, back to work. And how to value my family above all things. So, want to hear Judy? Cheers.
Cheers.
Who's next?
Oh, this is
Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Washington, and this is a tribute to Dr. Judy. That's what I always call her. Our heroes are sometimes hidden from view, from our view, but still in their sight. Judy Miller was a silent hero to many people, but not to the students at Seton Hall University, and to the community she was attached to. She was a real warrior fighting for the students at Hall, of which I was one. And the larger Black community she championed as her opportunities to affect change came available to her. You would always find her where she was needed, speaking the voice of the people that were silenced by
I need somebody to close that laptop if they could.
She never put out the digits for us to our reality. Judy had the uncanny ability to remind us of our duty to take advantage of the opportunities presented to us, but to always remember who paid for them to be available for our use. If you are sitting here, if you are making a reflection regarding the impact you had on you, whether you had one encounter with her or many, then you know why. I have been, so I'll make this personal. I met you in my sophomore year at Seton Hall University.
The laptop.
The laptop. It's supposed to I'm sorry, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that's not.
I met Judy in the sophomore of my year at Seton Hall University.
Just move
She
it over.
embraced it because she knew I was aiming for some direction and love. The culture shock of a New York yellow girl in Seton Hall was a hard adjustment most of the time. She provided both love and direction almost immediately. I spent untold hours just sitting in Black studies so I could absorb the knowledge, strength, and fortitude I I needed to survive at this institution. She kept me from dropping out when I joined the year. Not many people know that. Because she knew that I was going to break her. She helped me focus on the bigger possibilities of my life rather than the daily stresses of single motherhood and getting life. Stealing quote from one of my friends that said, exposure is everything, it changes lives. Well, Judy exposed me to a family life presented by her, Don, Eric, and Craig. She brought me and my family into the real fold, and I never left. Over the years, she continued to inspire, influence, and guide me in numerous ways that are too many to be counted today. But one important one cannot go without saying, I am Dr. Geraldine Washington today, substantially to Judy's encouragement, faith in my ability. Joe reminded me to never give up or to give in to someone else's definition of my ability or worth. You stand on the shoulders of giants, she would say, and you pay homage to them with every success you achieve. My personal relationship with you will be etched in my mind forever, in my memory for the rest of my life. I hope that I was able to bring her at least a small amount of anything close to what she gave me through the years. Judy, you are this. Thank you. Geraldine Washington, class of 7th grade.
Oh boy, here we go.
Two minutes. Yeah.
Take the mask off.
Take your mask off.
My brothers and sisters, I'm so honored to be able to speak a little bit about Judy Miller today. First, I want to say, Jerry, I can tell you, Judy was very proud of you. She used to talk about you to me all the time. So just know that for the rest of your life. Judy was a queen, a matriarch, a warrior. She never gave up a fight. I have this mask. It says Black Power, Black Lives Matter. They mattered to Judy back in 1973 when we were students. My name is Eddie Davey, and they called me BJ. That was my name. So, most lovely to see you all on BJ. Professional artist that day. And Judy was a person with integrity, fortitude, determination, a keen intellect, and a lot of fun to hang out with. And I'm so glad her nieces came up with wine and cigars because I have quite a few stories which I'm not going to say. Really fun stories. But Judy was so supportive to the Black students that we talk about in 1970. We're all now 70 years old, I can't believe it. But she was so supportive. She taught us about organizing and fighting and going for what we want to go for, to do it, to work hard. You could go and talk to Judy about anything. Whether you're sad, happy, just want to have fun. Judy and I had a lot of fun. Judy was one of the most selfless people I know. One day, I worked at CBS News, that's where my career was, I was walking around that show. And in 1982, I came up to visit Judy, and I had an opportunity to live in Nigeria and to do production work in Nigeria. And one of the correspondents, Randy Daniels, was going to take a bunch of Black professionals to train artist. So he said, can you get an artist? And I said, actually, I know one. And I know John's love of Africa. But I said, I'm not going to ask him. I'm going to ask the matriarch. I said, let me go and talk to Judy. So I went up and to see Paul. Of course, she opens up her drawer and pulls out a nice bottle of wine. And we had a couple of drinks, about a couple of glass. And I said, Judy, I'm not going to go live in my dream. One of my dreams in my life is to live in Africa for a year. And I explained the whole program. I said, we started. You think Don wants to go? I would go. And I'm ready for her to say, well, not for a year, or if he goes, maybe he could go for a month. No, she took the phone. We didn't have cell phones back then. And pushed the phone over to me and said, call. I called him. I asked him, Don lived in Nigeria for a year along with me, and there's another person here who was with us. Stand up for me. Lady Garland. And they loved Don there. And the Don get depressed because he was missing his wife. So when Judy would come over, I got 4 Judy's credit over here. Listen, Judy, girl, come. And so Judy came. And so to tell a funny story, because we all know how wonderful Judy was as a person and all the accomplishments she's done. But let me tell you a story in Nigeria. So one day, she was there, we were downstairs in a hotel. We stayed at a hotel for a little while. Got holiday, and it was a very nice holiday in Victoria Island in Nigeria. And so we were down with the whole group and talking and meeting, and who knows, I can't even remember what we were talking about. We had made a little drink then. But then Judy and I said, we want to talk. I want to catch up with happening at Steve Law and what's happening to her, and then talk political and all those type of things that, we all know that Judy can do. So we went up to Donna's room. There was no wine, there was a bottle of gin. There's a tonic water. Okay. So we poured the gin and tonic water a couple of times. So we're feeling okay, we find and having the most heavy conversations together. You couldn't tell us we didn't know what we were doing, what we were talking about. Heavy. Later on, Don comes walking in, and he sees the bottle of gin and the tonic there, and he looks at us. We're sitting on the floor, and he looked at us and said, "Feeling no pain." And we're like, "Listen, Jesus, listen down. We're having a really heavy conversation." And that's just like, basically, she said, "Shut up." So I said, "Oh, really? Yeah, oh, really?" He goes over and picks up a bottle of gin and goes, We're like, you can't drink. That's gin to be a harsh drink. He drinks straight up and he gulped it down. And then he started laughing. He said, "You are lying." I'm feeling okay. Well, good, because that bottle of gin was when I kept my water. That you brought up. So one day, I was at Seton Hall, and I'm driving Judy to go back to her house. So I thought we were going to do something. And, of course, Judy is smoking. We get near the house, and she goes to the bag and pulls out Judy not that. Well, she starts spraying herself. But this is what got me. And she said, well, I can't let Don and the boys know I'm smoking. I'm smoking like everybody. She was wonderful. She was encouraging. She told me, encouraged me to even take a trip that I was on a ship that went around the world. We all came to float. It's called something else now.
Semester at sea.
Yes, I did that, and she encouraged me to go to even to Mississippi. We got a Mississippi trip where it was a bunch of black and Jewish students. Everybody got afros, I got long hair. Everything that was against what they wanted to see down in the South. And when CBS 60 Minutes found out we were down there, it caused so much confusion. Judy went to, I don't know who it was at this time, maybe Brandon Pitts, if you remember, and said, you gotta take a bunch of money down there and go fly those students home. And they said that the guy was, he was extremely scared. He did not want to do it. And we were all brave, but you want to know something? I'll confess. I didn't come with money and said, come on, let's go. Then I'm playing. Betty was going because it was a scary time. But she was so encouraging. She loved her students beyond anything. She loved many, all of you out here in this audience, and many more people. I'm immensely proud of you. Craig, Eric are my brothers. They invited me into their family, so I'm one of the family. We don't say hi, Craig, and Eric, we say hi, sis, and my brother. You know, that's how close we are. We had Thanksgiving. In fact, if it wasn't for COVID, we would have had another Thanksgiving with Judy way before she passed. But I was happy and pleasantly able to have dinner, Thanksgiving with her, and we're going to still keep that tradition and come down. And she's just a wonderful person. I will miss her, but she lived a great life. I am so glad to know her. I know all of you are so happy to know her. So, Black Lives Matter, mattered back then, and still matters. And I just want to thank everybody who has been in her life to help enhance her life, because I know she enhanced it. And by the way, Pitts, as we call Brandon Pitts, Pitts was really in charge of Judy. She was the boss, and we just followed what Pitts said, but sometimes we come out of Judy. Thank you.
Am I up?
So I don't know what, just like Dr. Harris said, he doesn't know what he did to Christian. I don't know what I did to him to get him that in place of Dr. Sayers. But in the spirit of Dr. Sayers, whom we'll be speaking for, and Dr. Legacy will take all power to the people.
Power to the people.
All power to the people.
Power to the people.
So there's the comments of Dr. William Sales Jr. I wish to convey my condolences to the family of Judy Miller, in particular her sons, Eric and Craig. In the last several weeks, our community has lost several seminal figures in the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Gloria Richardson and Robert Moses, both of SNCC being among the Judy was a pioneer in 3 areas of struggle over the last third of the 20th century. First, she was in the forefront of the struggle to establish and institute Black studies. Second, Judy forced this institution to acknowledge that it had a responsibility to celebrate those brilliant but often uncredentialed Black scholars and artists who were foundational to the advancement of Black life. Third, Judy recognized that building Black studies was a Pan-African project. She assembled around her faculty, which included prominent scholars from the diaspora and the motherland. As an Afro-Latino, Judy recognized that the Black world included the art areas of Latin America. She worked with the Puerto Rican Institute to make sure that the heritage of Latin America could find a place in the curriculum of the center.
Judy loved people, and particularly her students. She advocated for the empowerment of students. She realized their potential to contribute to community development as part of her formal educational experience. During the height of the struggle for Black power in Mississippi, Judy took her students backstage to see the struggles of Black people firsthand and to learn how poor Black folks were organizing for liberation. She got private sector funding to support and publish community-oriented research done by our undergraduates. As a trained social worker, Judy knew that her greatest contribution to the development of her students was that she was accessible, that she listened, emphasized, but moreover, helped students in struggle to see that they had the strength and internal resources to overcome the barriers with which they were confronted. Judy Miller is now an ancestor. That means she is not gone. She is still around, but in a new way. Her life sets a standard of love and service that demands that we too strive for the excellence that she achieved. She is not going for her presence to be felt wherever and whenever we take up that struggle to go a little further on the road to true freedom. Because she is now an ancestor, we also sense her admonishment whenever we fall short of our responsibility to strive for academic excellence and social responsibility. As an ancestor, we know finally that as long as her memory lives in our heart and our actions, Judy Miller will never die. I'm sure.
Dr. Manley?
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Miles. I think Dr. Harris previously mentioned it, but I organized with First Women of Concern 44. I never had the opportunity to meet Judy Miller, but I would say that her dedication, her commitment, her discipline to students, to Black studies. I'm often reminded that Black studies wasn't established here without the fight of the students, without the courage of the students. But Black studies didn't stay here, and Black studies isn't here today, and Black studies wouldn't be here today, and I'm not here today if it weren't for the sacrifices and the love that she poured into this institution and that she poured into the students. I'm the direct result of that love and that dedication, that discipline. So I'm very grateful to be here today, to speak to you all, on behalf of myself, but to also just be in the community with you all. Thank you.
That's it. No, it's good, boss.
Good. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, I consider what a meaningful it is for me to be here on this occasion. Judy Miller was one of the very first people that I knew when I came to Seton Hall in September of 1973 to be part of the political science department. She had already been here about 2 years, working, helping develop the African American Studies program. And she and I became close friends almost from the beginning for a variety of reasons. It didn't hurt, but I don't think it was really essential that I had spent a year at Summer College. Later, of course, right across the street from Morehouse College, and in fact, we had a joint political science department in Morehouse, and that was quite an experience, my very first experience in an African American setting of that long time. So I was constantly enthralled with the development of the African American studies here at Seton Hall, even though I was in the political science department. And it was not all smooth sailing. I'm not going into any detail there, and I don't really have a lot of those details, but all over the United States, the development of African American studies programs, etc., was not exactly smooth sailing. Because the situation at Cornell University, where I studied law, but there, the court had told some of the American students were not too happy with the lack of faculty who knew anything about African Americans. And they showed, I take the whole thing, go to straight home, and the administration and the board of trustees of Cornell, they didn't know what that was going on. And at first they thought, well, we'll do head tapping, say, yes, we hear you, and so on. Let's start with something that was about when Judy was having a sort of the somewhat traditional send-off, and as they carried back in the room, it wasn't in this hall, or the building, this hall still there, across the Congress hall. And it was back. So much, the big turnout for people were there and hear Judy and hear other questions to be quite encouraged. Of course, Judy didn't just sit here at Seton Hall. Judy went to China. Wuhan University. We've heard a little bit about Wuhan University. Virus and long. What was the role of Wuhan University research labs? then the one of the professional hospitals opened up the upper level of the building, and they went to get out in pieces, lifted down to the ground level by probably a number of trucks gathered to Washington, and installed it there. And in Washington, you now, amazingly, you see this and you're told, would you like a conduct? Yes. Well, this is long, well, this is not. The postcard, and no, that's your copy. They give you a copy. Well, that's incredible piece of work. So that brings me to Jamaica, where Donald Trump not only came to say, I'm pretty good for so far, was when I was on the interview for a position at the University of Puerto Rico, and I was visiting that year in Atlanta, film morals, and I said to myself, wait, here I am in Puerto Rico, I need to save my ticket. And things would take so that instead of flying straight back to Atlanta, I fly to Jamaica. Why? Because Norman Manley was the leading political figure, really the founding political figure in Jamaica. And I'm not bad. And some creativity work with others, I'm suggesting we might well be related. So I'm glad the airport came called Norman Manley and his people that, of course, not just as barristers, Queen's Counsel, very happy little barristers, all of them in the same group, and said, how could we relate to any and stop over the chance? He said, sure. So we went to the cabin over in his race. We talked for an hour. And we concluded that we might well be related. Because we both of them live in a small town in England called Manly, which is 500 people there or something. And very southern elements like that. Anyway, I did have a chance to talk to Norman on occasion. Now, of course, the airport, it takes, it's called the Sir Norman Manley International Airport. And Norman Manley's wife was Edna Manley, the famous art person in Jamaica, where, in fact, in the School of Art, the Edna Manley School of Art, people, wife of that's where John did a lot of his study in art. So, I just thought to conclude with the mentioning about seeing Judy for the last time at dinner with another there. And having been so proud and happy to have known Judy Miller, that incredible person. When I had the the send-off for her St. Paul, which I mentioned, she told a story about when she was in this part of the world, and that part of the world, doing this, doing that. You could listen to things, whatever, where did everything. So that's my little run. Would I be able to get back in here?
You know, in the historical context of struggle, we appreciate allies who stepped up to support us. And I think we were using the efforts of those who could negotiate on our behalf and stepped up. And I would say light allies is very important, but strategic for all of our movements. Now going to have Craig Miller, who will be coming up with this.
Thank you all for being here. I want to thank the university for hosting this event. I want to thank Brenda, of course, and everybody else that made it possible. We very much appreciate all of your efforts. When we last left off, my mother was in an extended courtship with my father. And thanks to the alley by little skipper thing. They wound up getting married in 1952. They wanted very much to have children, but they were having trouble conceiving. They weren't able to conceive right away. And the resources for people who wanted to conceive in the 50s were not what it is today. There's all kinds of options and things people can do, but they're having trouble conceiving. My mother's doctor said, you need to change your climate. That's what you got to do. So they booked a trip to Mexico to spend some time in Mexico. And while they were there, my parents met my good friend Richard's parents, who became a lifelong friendship. And 9 months later, my brother Eric found out. 2 years and 2 weeks later, I found out. I was conceived in Mexico. I was probably conceived in East Orange. Shortly before my third birthday, we moved to Montclair from East Orange. My family was the first family to come up to purchase a home on that street. There were some white families who left, but most stayed and most welcomed us and made us feel at home. Some other families come up here, and that street is still very diverse to this day. My mother wound up living in that house for 55 years. One of my earliest memories takes place in the home in Stanford Place in Montclair. It's a party. It wasn't a kid party, it was adults. I think Eric and I were probably the only kids. It was daytime. And I don't know, maybe it was warm, but all the adults were drinking a lot, and they all had glasses in their hands. And they were, I guess, hydrating themselves or something. And I was sitting in the kitchen. My mother was there, several other adults were there as well. And one of the adults asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. Without missing me, I said, I want to be a mom. And I think the reason I remember that so well is because it got a similar reaction when I first said that. It was very funny. So that memory stuck with me, and it would replay my mind. As I got older, learned how things work a little bit more, I asked myself, why did I say that? What was the reason that I said I wanted to be a mom? And I realized that the reason I said that is because I thought my mother knew everything. I thought, and I bet some of the students probably thought the same thing too when we were students here. to be a mommy too. I'll talk a little bit about how my mother was as a mother. She was an amazing mother. As Mama pointed out, though, when you smell something burning, you get a little great. She was kind, she was also providing structure and discipline with a couple of hard-headed boys, and we didn't very much. But she was never harsh or callous. And she never talked down to us. She always spoke to us as if we were human beings who were capable of understanding what it was she was trying to help us understand. And eventually we did get it. And it was great to have her as a stay-at-home parent, as most of them were in the 60s. But when she decided to go back to work, I think that was also very instructive for me to see an intelligent, powerful woman manifesting her vision and all the work that she did here and also in the community. I think for me, as a young man, it was a very good thing to see that was something that was normal and natural. And she set a very powerful example in all that she did. A lot of people here today talk a little bit about her legacy. And I think her legacy is extensive. I think there's so many lives that she touched, and so much work that she did, so many good things that she brought about. When Eric and I were cleaning out the house to get ready to sell, what had been his bedroom upstairs had been my mother's office and also a guest room. And there were shelves around the desk, and there was books on the shelf, but there were also awards and recognition and proclamations for both like that. There were so many things literally sometimes stacked 3 deep on the shelf from all the recognitions that people had given her and my dad over the years. And when my mother got those things, she was always humbled by it. She was always very appreciative. She knew that it was given to her in the spirit of appreciation. But she would be very humble very often when she says, you know, one of these days you can find out who's the devil of the world from Brooklyn. You know, you're going to take this thing back. And, if you really want to know my mother's legacy, you need to know her grandchildren. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that right now. I'm going to start with Karen, her youngest. She called him TD. She's the only person who called him TD. She called him that because his name is Trent Donald. And I think she wanted to maintain that connection for him, to his grandfather, but also for her, to her husband. Trent is an NCAA Division I athlete. He made the Dean's List this past year. Trent is a film and TV major at another Catholic university, this is our SHU, but not this one, Sacred Heart University. When he was a freshman and went there, his first dorm was called Seton Hall. I was able to come back and tell my mom, Trent's going to Seton Hall. She said, fine, he's over the bed. Trent will begin in a couple of weeks filming his very first movie that he's shooting based on a script that he wrote. My nephew Bear is my mother's oldest grandchild, the first. The mutual admiration between him and my mother was something to behold, and words can't describe what it was like from the moment he appeared on the screen. And that connection that my mother had was amazing. Abeo said, graduate of the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. He's a head bartender at one of the best bars in the world. When I say that, that might sound like a bragging proud of what I did. But I haven't been to one. I'm going to go hopefully this summer. But he was rated one of the best bars in the world by Google it, not now, but Google it, 50 best bars in the world. Number 16. And also, when it opened, there was a part of the opening, it was the best new bar in the country. Then, when COVID was traveling the world, going to bars, barely getting out by the city of Madrid, coming back into time for the shutdown. Marley. When Marley was born, my mother dubbed her Mind Princess. She was a head bartender at one of the best bars in the world. Number 17. And also, when it opened, there was a part of the opening, it was the best new bar in the country. Then, when COVID was traveling the world, going to bars, barely getting out by the city of Madrid, coming back into time for the shutdown. Marley. When Marley was born, my mother dubbed her Mind Princess. When Sean was working full time to go to law school at night, Marley and I would have evening dinners with my mother. And very often I would go out after dinner, I would either go to a wide exercise or meetings in the Unitarian Church in Montclair. And the two of them just bonded, and it was just complete total engagement for the two of them for the whole time they were together. I mean, just amazing. Marley graduated with honors from College University, and she did a year of service with the Merit Corps, working at a middle school in East Harlem. I worked in an elementary school. Teachers get burned out. Marley worked the before school program, worked with the kids all day through the school day, and then worked the after school program. That's crazy. But she did. Marley is a published poet. And she's currently working on her first book. And first thing tomorrow, we're going to put her on a plane to Georgia, where she'll begin the Master's of Fine Arts degree at the University of Georgia. And she's going to read her book. They sometimes talk about how things skip a generation. I don't want to put my brother and I under the bus. But we do okay. We stayed out of trouble. We married well. We the best college in the community. We both got advanced degrees. We both have had successful careers in education. I think we helped some people. But when I look at what my parents did and what the next generation is doing, I look a long way. On top of all the accomplishments of my mother's grandchildren, they're really good people. They are amazingly good people. I believe that her grandchildren are her living legacy to education effort and excellence. 2017, we moved my mom out of her home on San Francisco. It became too difficult to provide adequate care for her. We moved her to an assisted living facility, which was just about a mile from my house. And so I went from, when we lived in Virginia, I'd see her once or twice a year. We moved up to Philadelphia and see her once or twice a month, but now I can see her several times a week. She was very comfortable where she was living. She liked it. We put some of my father's paintings on the wall so it could feel like home to her. And she never complained. She was always very pleasant. I love the fact that I was able to go up there. Even if I only had half an hour of time, I could go spend 20 minutes with her because she was 5 minutes away. We would have Sunday dinners with her out here at my house and have Sunday dinners with her. And her memory decline was a very slow and gradual one. She was able to retain things for the most part. She would forget names and chronology sometimes, but sitting with her, she had all of her journals from her travel. Every travel, she would keep a journal from each trip. And very often I would just pick one of those at random or ask her which one she might want to go, and I'd read something to her. I could tell the memories would start to come back. I could tell that the memory banks were beginning to open up, and some of those memories were just completely unfolded, lost, and all of a sudden she was living and really enjoying it. So I'm very pleased that I had a lot of contact with her in those last years. When COVID hit, it really accelerated her decline. I think in large part due to the isolation it was necessary to keep her healthy. As soon as they started talking about what was happening, I knew that nursing homes were very vulnerable environments. I was so worried about it, but they did a good job of keeping out of it. She got her first COVID shot in January. And then days before she could get her second COVID shot, she tested positive for virus. The symptoms were not strong. She became dehydrated, had to go to the hospital for a little while. She came back out, and her strength and her clarity really diminished greatly. And she passed easily. But she had a wonderful life. And in some of those later years, while she was still pretty clear, she would very often come back to my father's last words. My father passed away in 1993. And it was a Sunday, and my father had spoken to both my mother and I that day, and had hung up the phone after speaking with me and said to my mother, "Do you know how lucky you are?" My mom said, "Yeah." She said, "No, look at me. Do you realize how lucky we are?" And that is something that I always come back to. I just consider myself fortunate. I don't know what I did. It's certainly fortunate. Have my parents and
crazy part of my life, but that's what came back to her. So we got interesting because in the end, it was about all their accomplishments and all their accolades and all those things. It wasn't about what they did for others, but it was what all of us did for them that was really the most important thing to her. She was so grateful for all the people in her life that helped her to fulfill her vision. And I am too. And so I thank all of you for the role that you played, for the joy that you brought to my mother, and for being part of that. Thank you very much.
Our next piece is going to be at the microphone.
Okay, cool.
Just want you to
All right, all right.
You can go up to this mic in the center if you have something really short and brief to say. I got a little bad, but I'm not
Not all the way. Not all the way. There you go. Okay.
So as my best friend and trainer, I wrote this prose poem about my grandma in 2016. I'm trying to hear it, right here with you a little bit. It's called Bird TV with Dr. Judy Miller. My grandma has been at the rehab facility for weeks now. It started as a cuddle infection with her. Despite the sterilized aroma of the facility, sometimes replaced by the scent of meat or fried food, she's managed to maintain a smoky, Gene-based signature scent. I imagine her saturating herself in a bottle of my childhood nostalgia every morning when she sits up from the starchy white paper bed. I wish more than anything for her that she could be back in her home with her cat Lola discussing Bird TV. Bird TV, my mom says, is how Lola and Grandma start every morning when Grandma's favorite nurse, Ieda, is there. Ieda opens the blinds near Grandma's bed for Lola. I imagine the sunlight spilling in, caressing my beautiful grandmother like they are old friends who are just sharing their intimate secrets. Lola pounces excitedly on the windowsill and watches birds outside in the tent. Often says Grandma speaks to Lola all morning about the birds she sees. And then I imagine Grandma Julia shuffling around the house with her walker, which later will inevitably hold a glass of her crimson yellow tail wine on its shelf. She is speaking softly in a language that belongs to her and Lola alone. What kind of birds do you see, Lola? How many have you seen? 1, 2, 3. Patrick lets it as tall as that? Ieda brings my grandma breakfast on a tray, even though my grandma makes the best pancakes in the world while in her home. I remember myself as a child, overweight for the world was crushing my narrow shoulders. I sit anxiously at the tiny table in Grandma's kitchen, not flapping in syrup, tiny stubby fingers sticking together until Grandma Julia sat down and pancakes shaped like an N for my name. Then all the rest of the world felt quiet. I have such a hard time finding it nowadays. Perhaps because Grandma has grown less talkative, I hope she knows I still care deeply about what she has to say. I envy Lola the cat, who probably hears all about Grandma's memories from Dr. John Henry Clark or maybe Giovanni, or jokes that made her and her childhood friend Leela laugh when they were young, or wild stories from her days in Nigeria working with Dr. Rhonda. Perhaps she tells Lola about summers on the boat with her beloved husband, my grandpa and mother. Breeze racing through her kinky curly hair as Grandma stares her, periodically looking at her as if she's the most devastating, gorgeous woman in the world. Or most devastating words that any artist has ever created. I'm sure she reminisces about all the memories of loved ones that she shared in the new house, her favorite place. Whenever she was there, she would start every morning by throwing her head back towards the sky and yelling, "Thank you, Lord," on the deck. And I always felt deep in my bones her gratitude for this one wild and wonderful life. She would smile out the lively baby hills laid out in front of her. I know the word she's talking to is the one we talk about in Alice Walker's Color Purple, and this is next verse in Color Purple. God ain't a he or a she, but a gift. Well, what do you look like, I asked. Don't look like nothing, she said. It ain't a picture show, it ain't something you can look at apart from anything else, including yourself. I believe God is everything, Bishop. Everything that is or ever was, was or ever will be, and when you can feel that and be happy for that, you found it. She said, my first step from the old white man in the streets, then air, then birds, then other people. But one day when I was sitting quiet and feeling like a motherless child, which I was, it comes to me. That feeling of being part of everything, not separate at all. I knew that if I cut a tree, my arm would bleed. And I laughed and I cried and I ran all around the house. I knew just what it was. In fact, when it happens, you can't miss it. Grandma Julia was soft in so many ways. Could be a contribution to the softness that has been gathering inside me for years, but she is hard and fierce when she needs to be. I hope I received some of that fierceness too. More than anything, I hope I made her proud. As proud as I was to be able to call her my Oaxaca.
We're now going to enter into that period of the community or the village participation, where any of you who wish to give testimony to Judy or back in her life may walk to this microphone. What we're going to ask you to do, I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to ask 10 sites to come down. You'll be first, because I know it's going to be a musical tribute. And then I'm going to have to ask everyone just to come back as best we can, and as politely as you can. If you're going to use a mic, I'm going to ask you to stand up and kind of line yourselves up in the aisle right now, so that we're not having to assist people coming and going with this. I just want to get a gauge on the amount of time. Okay, you can assume your position. Anybody who would like to take part in this, you're going to have to stand and commit keep on the line right now. We can hold this up. And I'm actually, Pete had intended, because I know it's involving music, I actually was going to play a little excerpt right now, the Morehouse College Choir singing Amazing Grace. But I'm going to yield to the fact that I'm not going to miss it. So once again, the only rule of notice is that you must cue yourself up in order to take part.
Testing 1, 2.
Ready to go with the stage show rep?
Testing.
Brian, that's it, Brian. I don't see him. Brian, you see, I should have liked his live.
Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who is Ken Sykes? Let it suffice to say that Ken Sykes was one of the soldiers that took over Bailey Hall that brought about the Seton Hall University Black Studies program. The Martin Luther King Scholarship and Soul Food in the cafeteria. I want to recognize Monty Brooks, Leroy Ashe, Erwin Ashe, Jake Chitty, Delecta Barry, and all other students my memory has failed to remember who took over that building at that time. What do I remember? What do I remember about Dr. Judy Miller? She taught me that Seton Hall University had a hidden swimming pool. I didn't know there was a swimming pool, but I noticed that walking across campus, you'd have a bathing cap on, et cetera, et cetera. You stick to the script. Okay. As a student who wanted to know what was going on, she taught me the word unilateral. Dr. Miller unilaterally orchestrated the success of Seton Hall University African Studies program. At this time, to stay within the 2-minute restriction, one of the things that I would like to do is the following people to come forward so we can take a group picture because we are history. Betty June Davy, okay, and let me stick to the script. Betty June Davy, who in her script, she said one word that I thought was very significant. And that was the word family. That over the years, I realized, for better or for worse, okay, that one, Seton Hall University, those people I share all experiences were family. I want to mention at this time, I want to thank Paul Tillman, who's always stayed in contact with me in reference to events and activities that kind of brought me to this moment here. I would like for that family, including Paul, Brenda, Wilma, Jackie, Ingrid, Carol, Betty, Ron Thompson, Jerry, I'm just having to write this down, Barnes, Reed, Bruce, and Jerry. Any of those students are part of that family because this is a historical moment. It's all woven into what happened in reference to the African Studies program. If you could come forward, okay, whether you're a student, what have you, so we can take this group picture. While you're coming forward, I will do my drum commemoration to honor the spirit and our ancestor, Judy Miller. Ancestor Judy Miller. Okay. Oh, is that Mike? All right. Unfortunately, Aaron had to leave earlier, okay, but I did take a picture. Again, while we're waiting, Barbara, okay, that came over there, okay. Lisa, okay. Again, oh man, there's so much to be said. I left out certain notes. Is Mike up here? Okay, I don't want to, again, I just want to get that picture, okay, so we have a record.
Can everybody stand not in front of someone else?
Look at your room down here. You're down. Hey. Like a lot of people take a picture. It's
taking the mask off.
Yeah.
Step back so
Sure.
she'll get her picture.
Like taking a picture, boy. Like the young man got up there and started talking. He started talking about taking over the building. The day he's thinking about the Black Student League, all those students. Rob O'Hannon, okay. Like Michael Jones, all those folks who were seeing. We were a unique class. Anytime me and Betty went to Mississippi, I was looking up and going to the African thing.
I was in Mississippi.
I'm telling you, remember? I remember NCA. See, that's why we don't call it religion.
There is very few people. But see a black presence on there that's got on there now. You know, a couple of black people on there. Even though you got a good organization, you always need to attend to some black issues. So she talked me into it. I had enough to do at the time. I was trying to be a lawyer somewhere and had other causes with which I was associated. But she said, no, you gotta be on that. And I said, fine. And I said, well, with her and me together, we're gonna really do a good job. But what she did, when I got on, she got off. She resigned. And I wondered about that. And of course she had that and then I understood at some point what she was doing. What she was saying is that it's your turn now. I did what I'm supposed to do. And all of these students, former students who came up here, most of whom I know, and all of the things she did, whether it was in Nigeria or whether it was here, the trip to Mississippi, all that she was saying was to Junius Williams, it's your turn now. And the spirit of her is in this room telling me to say that to you. We're all saying good things about who she was, but it's your turn now. Especially you young folks. Absorb all that she was. Understand that she was a fighter. Amen. You see, too many times now we get on social media and think we have done our job, but Judy was up front to take on the political structure of Seton Hall University, to help develop these young warriors that you saw here today. That's what she was all about. So I'm just glad to have been in the service. I'm glad to have known her. I'm glad to have known her as a friend. Called her often. We got together as often as we could. Terrell Foundation as well. All of that was who she was, and I trust that you will become as well. God bless you, Judy. I love you.
Judy was a friend, colleague, and mentor. I'm Reverend Dr. Deborah Stapleton, and I met Judy in 1970 through Dr. George Jackson, the founder and first director of Black Studies, African Studies, and Aaron Campbell, who was the director of EOP. I sat in on some of those original organizing meetings of Black Studies with Judy, Aaron, and Dr. Jackson, and I happened to be working in the city of Newark, leading this citywide scholarship program and actually working under Junius Williams, who was the director of Mob Cities. And I just remember when I first got to Seton Hall, Judy said, "What can you teach?" And I was like, wow. And then she provided me with the opportunity to teach basic research in writing and Black theater history, which was my love. She advocated for me to teach oral communications and group discussion in the communications department. And so I was one of the first African Americans to teach in that department, because she was always about breaking grounds in all of the departments. She helped to form the Black Faculty and Staff Association and the Black Student Union, as you heard from Ken Sykes. She and Aaron, and I have to add Lou Rowland, who was the director of Upward Bound, they were the SHU gurus. They really did programs that were unbelievable, some of which are still in existence today. But you see, it's also what I call Mother Africa. You see, Betty, when she journeyed to Africa with Don and coming back, she returned with what I call African root dirt. I'm gonna tell you, she sprinkled the dirt on most of us, if not all of us, African American women and men within Seton Hall. And I will say to you that there was a Black Studies EOP baby boom. That's why we call her Mother Africa. I think Brenda Pitts was first in terms of having a baby, and then one of our EOP graduate assistants, and then 6 of the EOP counselors, myself included, the gospel choir director, and I think Aaron had his second son, and the list would go on, but it was a baby boom. And yes, so Judy was Mother Africa. The word says, you are the light of the world, and a light on top of a hill cannot be hidden. Judy was not only Mother Africa, but she was also a light in this world. Her light was never, ever, ever hidden. And in remembering Judy, let me just say this. Let us make certain that our light is not hidden. Let our light shine, because that's the real tribute to Judy Miller. And know that the struggle continues. She would have us not believe anything else. Thank you so much.
To the family, our deepest condolences. Also from the People's Organization for Progress in the city of New York. I met Judy when I came to Seton Hall in 1972 as a graduate student. We had a very strong, I worked with the Education Opportunity Program, but we had a very good relationship with Black Studies. Anytime that there were problems on campus relative to Black students in particular, they either would come to EOP or they would go to Black Studies. The Center for African and Black Studies then had one of the largest group of faculty members. The curriculum, we would enroll students in their courses. Judy, we spent a lot of time with Judy, especially when we had a lot of racial incidences on campus. We spent hours and hours and hours between EOP and other faculty members, and Judy in particular. Judy had always gone out of her way to nurture students, to nurture staff. There's so many things that you can say about Judy. Judy was a gift from God. Judy was the kind of person that was honest. She was upfront. She shared herself. She shared her family as well, and you shared her with us. One of the, I think, the greatest gifts, at least for us, for some of us, was that we were able to celebrate Judy's 90th birthday with her in Pennsylvania. Again, her spirit will live on. And one of the things in terms of making the legacy of Judy still live on this campus is to strengthen the Department of African American Studies or African Studies. We support diversity, we support multiculturalism, but the reality is the way that it could come into fruition is when you hire faculty, tenured faculty in the Department of African Studies. Now, again, thank you, Judy. Thank you to the family, because again, you shared it with us, and her spirit will live on. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Pritchard Smith Gregory, and I was the class of 1973. You saw me up here with some of my classmates, and one of the things that I want to recall is that, like Jerry, coming from Newark and coming to Seton Hall and being the only Black person in a class of 30, 40, 50 students, Black studies became a lifeline. And so for every class that I took, and I remember the professors, and I want to call them, some of them are deceased, but it's important lest we forget, for psychology, because everyone had to take psychology. I took Black psychology with Dr. George Jackson. For business, you take a business course. I took a business course with George Sabiro. With communications, I took a course with Gil Noble. For a health course, I took a course with Dr. Douglas Ford. And all of these professors, Crystal Kuykendall, when I took sociology, I took Black social systems. It was the lifeline. And for her grandchildren, you stand on strong shoulders from both your grandmother and your grandfather. Lest we forget, you have to continue onward. We kind of live in the past as elders. We kind of stay there, but you cannot stay there. You have to go forward, standing on the shoulders of the greatness that you come from, the loins from which you come. And we need you to take on the responsibility that your grandfather, your grandmother, and your fathers and mothers have poured into you. Because as Deborah said, the struggle continues and we must go on. We never thought that Black Studies department would fade, but it did. And because it did, the Concerned 44 had to lift up demonstrations and rallies and taking over buildings. So there are things go in cycles. So you all have a part to play wherever you go, wherever you take it with you, and be the light that Deborah talked about, be the voice. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's not working. Okay. I'll try to speak up. Good afternoon. I'm Professor Matthew Johnson. I'm a faculty member at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York. And my professorship is in some ways connected with Dr. Miller. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. I'm also a member of the People's Organization for Progress. But my dear friend and mentor, James Harris, was not able to be with us this afternoon. He did send in a statement, and I'm privileged to read his statement. Statement of James E. Harris during memorial services with Dr. Judy Miller. Dr. Julia Miller was a superstar for me. Justine, Kashina, and Jamila Harris. Those are his wife and daughters. Because we had the privilege of seeing her as a mother, as a wife, and as a courageous education and civil rights leader. I met Judy as a Monterey resident and the wife of Donald Miller, the great visual artist, who was a book illustrator for children's books that were written by our next door neighbor, Jack and Baxter Brown. I became more connected to Judy. She taught in the Black Studies program at Seton University with Dr. George Jackson. Judy became the director of Africana Studies and hosted several meetings that resulted in the formation of the New Jersey Association of Black Educators. Judy was a founding member of NJABE and a dedicated member of the NJABE Executive Committee and supported its programs and activities as long as she could. The primary purpose of New Jersey NJABE was to protect and promote African and African American studies throughout New Jersey. I always admired how Judy would speak truth to power in clear and firm, unapologetic manner. She always projected a vision of current situations as well as future challenges and possibilities. Judy was appointed as a charter member of the New Jersey Amistad Commission. She also made significant positive contributions by securing grants each year for the Terrell Fund. She was also the chair of the Memorials Committee. I always enjoyed driving Judy to and from Amistad Commission meetings as we shared information about her love for her family and colleagues at the Chad African Preschool, as well as Seton University. She often talked about her involvement with the NAACP and allies, and how they struggle to achieve racial integration of Montclair public school system. Her home in Montclair was an artist's gallery of paintings of Don Miller, which reflected Judy and Donald's travels to different countries and continents. Judy's life was a model deep love and devotion of family, people, scholarship, and civil rights. Judy Miller will always be memorialized to the many people she inspired, counseled, and supported throughout her life. Thank God for blessing us with Dr. Judy Miller. Respectfully, James E. Harris, President, New Jersey Association of Black Educators, and Commissioner of the New Jersey Common Stock Commission. I have 2 more minutes.
No.
I woke up early this morning and wanted to write some personal reflections about Judy Miller, and it's less than 2 minutes, I think. Dr. Judy Miller. I knew Judy Miller most of my life. She was a very close friend of my mother's, Ann Johnson. They were. Thank you. Representing my mother as well. They were active in Montclair, advocating for educational equity for Black students in the public school system. They were always PTAing and organizing in the 1960s. Later, my mother, who was an artist, would spend time with Judy and Don at their home in upstate New York. My mom and Don were in several art shows together. Later, as a young man, I came to know Miss Miller better. After receiving my bachelor's degree in 1976, I realized I wanted to attend graduate school. My mom suggested that I go talk to Ms. Miller. I didn't know why she sent me to see Ms. Miller, since I didn't want to attend Seton Hall University. But Seton Hall was expensive. I told Ms. Miller I wanted to study psychology and eventually earn a PhD. First, she insisted that I no longer call her Ms. Miller and that I call her Judy. Second, she told me she liked my plan, but she could not help me. Third, she provided me a phone number and told me to call a James Harris at Montclair State College, whom I did not know and had never heard of. I thanked her, but I was afraid this would lead nowhere. Well, I did call James Harris and met with him at Montclair State College. Gratefully, James did not question me about my mediocre undergraduate record. He directed me to apply to certain graduate assistantships at Montclair State College, and I subsequently was awarded an assistantship and began my master's degree. In 1979, I told Judy about a research paper I was completing in my master's program. She invited me to lecture to one of her classes at Seton Hall University. Following the lecture, she mailed me a thank you letter, which I still have today. And she encouraged me to continue my research. The thank you letter I received from her, I'm going to give it to Dr. Kelly Harris today. In 1980, I was accepted to 4 PhD programs. In 1982, another important and monumental year in my life, Christine Baker agreed to marry me. Judy Miller attended our wedding reception, and as a wedding gift, she gave us a Don Miller print, Maasai warriors, that continues to hang in our family room today. My mom continued her friendship with Judy and Don. They met often at my mom's home in East Orange. My mother also visited the Millers' upstate New York farmhouse many times. In 1997, Christine and I took my mom, our 2 sons, and our nephew for a weekend visit with Judy at the Millers' farmhouse. We have fond memories and photos from this trip, where 3 generations of us hiked in the surrounding woods. It was my great privilege to be raised by a vibrant community of intellectuals and artists who were also activists for racial justice. Judy and Don were bright, beautiful, and brilliant couple, who along with George Jackson, Forrest Pritchard, James Harris, Clement Price, William Sales, and many others inspired me. And for this, I'm tremendously grateful. Thank you.
My name is Mark Newman. I'm from Jamaica. And, I couldn't leave without just saying a couple words about Aunt Judy. And there's so much serious accomplishments about her life, but I just want to focus on her as a person. My wife Kathleen and I moved to Montclair in '95. My dad, Ken Newman, is a cousin of Don Miller, so that's a family connection. And I was really blessed to spend a few years in Montclair to raise our two children in Montclair and have them attend Montclair High. And I didn't realize until today that Aunt Judy had part of that legacy. But what I wanted to say was, Aunt Judy, Uncle Hank, Aunt Ethel used to bring Aunt Judy to her house in Montclair often for dinner. And usually after the first bottle of wine, there was an accident on the table. And we would lose one of the nice glasses. We used to have stained glasses. And after about the second dinner, Uncle Hank said, "Listen, man, you're going to lose all your wine glasses. Just go where you want without the stems." On a more serious note, Aunt Judy was just a great person. She was an interesting person. She was a fascinating person. She was an accomplished person, but you didn't feel like she wore her accomplishments on her sleeve. You just felt the sense of accomplishment in her presence. So I just want to revel in that today and her great legacy. And as so many have said, we bear the responsibility in our generation of furthering that great legacy. So thanks for having us today. It's really been great to be here. And again, also greetings from the family, the Newman family in Jamaica. They wanted, I often remember my dad, Ken, and Uncle Keith talking very fondly of Don and Judy. And I have experienced that in my own family. And so I just wanted to share that today. Thank you.
He's from Jamaica. I'm from TNT. Right? And now I'm a professor, I'm an adjunct professor here at Seton University. And when I start classes, I come and I tell people, I'm going to give you a test. Right? What island am I from? Don't say the island with the J. Right? Trinidad and Tobago. But anyway, how I met Judy Miller. I came to this country on July 4th, 1977. Right? I went to high school for 1 year. I went to Boys and Girls High School in Brooklyn. And then I received a scholarship to come to Seton Hall. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, right? Because I like to keep it real, right? So, just come from Trinidad, from one of the poorest communities in Trinidad and Tobago, right? I used to say, we grew up so poor, we dropped the OR. We were just poor. And we didn't afford it. And so I went to Boys and Girls High School, and that was my only chance to go to college. Right, was to get a track and field scholarship. And I had 1 year to do it. So in 1 year, I got a scholarship to come to Seton Hall University. And I'm swearing, this is the honest truth. Come to Seton Hall University. So everything went good. September, I came to school, right? And I actually thought that Seton Hall was a black university. I'm being honest, seriously. I stayed in Bowling Hall right over there, right, on the 3rd or the 4th floor. And in September, I looked out the window, and I said, wow, I didn't know. I didn't know Seton Hall was considered to be a white university. I thought it was a black university. But besides that, there were many of us on the track team from the Caribbean. right? Our track team was considered to be the United Nations because we had people from Ireland, we had people from Kenya, we had people from Barbados, Jamaica. And someone on the team had a class with Miss Miller, Mrs. Miller, had a class with them. And they told us, we got to meet this professor in Black Studies. So we met Mrs. Miller, and I gotta tell you, it was the best thing for all of us on the team because, it was new to us, very new. As a matter of fact, right, at one time there was a cross burned on one of our doors, the people from Jamaica, right? And I was like, remember I just come from Trinidad, I had no clue what that was. Seriously, absolutely no clue. And I'm like, what was that? But Ms. Miller had to pour all of us in and explain to us what that was all about. Because you come from Jamaica, Barbados, Grenada, you really don't know what that stuff was. But she was like a parent to all of us. When summertime come, it was Miss Miller. Miss Miller, what do we do? Always Mrs. Miller. And she adopted all of us on the track team and was like, we considered to be our mother. Because all of us was away from home, and she was so fantastic. She was actually fantabulous to all of us. And we all really, really appreciated what she did for us, as us being away from where we were born. And Ms. Miller was so fantastic there. She didn't even have to know us. She just knew that we were on the campus and we were new, and she was a really fantabulous, splendiferous, marvelous, tremendous lady. Thank you, Nancy.
Good afternoon to all of you. I wanted to have a few moments. It's not working? Soft voice, so I have to project. Okay, good afternoon to all of you. It's an honor to be here, all of you, to pay tribute to a good and dear friend, Dr. Judy Miller. And to the family, we've lost a giant in our midst. I've known Dr. Miller since 1970. But in addition to her work at Seton Hall University, something that she did effectively and quietly, and quiet that she was still a warrior. Yeah. Because behind closed doors, I remember many on occasion, she would call me to go meet with Monsignor Fay when she thought there was something that needed to be done. But I really want to emphasize two things that Judy Miller has done that perhaps not too many people are aware of. And that is, during my tenure as president at Essex County College, we had many challenges. And we needed supporters, but more than supporters, but we needed warriors. And when there was an attempt, perhaps, to close the doors at Essex County College to prevent students from getting access to higher education and affordable quality higher education, Judy was one of those individuals that we called upon. And she came with us, marched with us, went to Trenton, and made sure that open access was preserved for students, particularly in the urban areas. But also, when she finished with Seton Hall, her work was not done. She was very much involved, and I think she did become the first executive director of what was then Cities in Schools, which later became Communities in Schools, where she wanted the community to be within the school as partners, because ultimately those children who were in those schools were our children, and we had to be part of what was happening within those schools. And Judy was very active in that. Of course, she called me, and of course, as you know, in her own quiet way, she said, Zach, we are starting this Communities in Schools, would you like to join the board? And as Junior said, I said to Dr. Miller, I have plenty on my plate. I don't think I can do it. She says, no, it's just going to be maybe 1 or 2 meetings, and it's not heavy lifting. Well, lo and behold, it was more than 1 or 2 things. It was a lot of heavy lifting. But that was Judy's way of getting all of us to come and pay home. And then, of course, as Judy also said, then she retired from communities and schools. And of course, the rest of us who joined, because she was going to be there, she left us with whatever had to be done. So that is Dr. Miller, and her legacy will continue to live in all of us, in our hearts, for the work that she has done. But she was a wonderful person, wonderful person. Of course, I can't attest too much to her cooking, because by the time, the food was ready, we had had enough, and therefore it really didn't matter what. But that's what it is. So again, to the family and to the legacy that Judy has left for us, I just want to, lend my voice in saying a wonderful, wonderful individual, a wonderful friend. In fact, between Judy and Don, they have left us with a great legacy. And of course, just one little piece that, on a personal note, Don, of course, famous artist, her work is legendary, but also what she did to preserve the art curriculum within the city of Newark. She was very much involved, in the arts program in the building above Arts High School, and he single-handedly worked to preserve that organization going. And some of her work, his work, was auctioned off to support that school. And of course, my daughter, years later on, inspired by Don, became an artist, and of course, in her own right, she's now becoming a very famous artist in her own right. And again, thanks to the Millers, they've left something with us, and we hope that that legacy will continue not only in the grandchildren, but also for generations to come. Again, thank you very much for this.
We're going to be wrapping up in about 10 minutes, and that's a modification. I wanted you all to appreciate that, because I love you. You're welcome. But I also wanted to mention this. You see many of us doing African cloth, and I feel like I take a moment to explain to some people that this is not about just the artistry of the Khan culture, I think, coming out of Ghana, the Ashanti people. For example, you see these symbols on mine, and you may have seen them on other person's kente cloths. But actually, there are almost 100 symbols within the Indinka system. So I thought I would take a moment just to explain 2 of these to you. But as a member of the clergy, as I go forward, I'll say in the name of our cross and what we believe. This symbol stands for peace. This symbol is pronounced Ganame, which means God above all. And I think if there's been one thing that would characterize the struggle of African Americans in this country, when people ask the question, how have they made it for so long? And let me just mention how long it is. Several years ago, in the year 2019, we celebrated the 400th anniversary of Africans who were enslaved being brought into the Jamestown colony by the English. If you know a little bit about American history, you can recall that actually it was the Spanish who began to produce settlements in North America far before the English. You can look at the Jamestown settlement in Florida. I also found something very interesting in one of my pieces of research, which is rather simple for me, that in many of the settlements that the Spanish attempted to develop, one was in the area of Georgia. It was around 1526. They wanted to utilize a labor force of forced labor from Africa. They had 100 enslaved Africans. The Africans rebelled, and the settlement failed. The year that took place was 1526. That means, my friends, in another 5 years, when we enter the year 2026, we will be looking at commemorating 500 years of resistance of people of African descent in North America fighting against those forces. I thought I would share that with you. It's not just about the artistry, it's about the history, but imagine the power of a symbol of Ghana man. God is above all. I will now give you the shortest sermon that I've ever preached. Make sure. But I wanted to just remind everybody, Judy Miller was born in the late 20s. That meant that literally the next 2 decades of her life as she became a teenager and a young adult. Keep in mind the terrific economic deprivation that occurred in America. The largest percentage of our population was unemployed. The data tells us that over 50% of all African Americans were unemployed. I say it because, in a sense, as many of you young people who have made here as you go through the period of COVID, just understand that in many cases, a generation can be defined by those traumatic events which are occurring to you. So to some extent, Judy represented that generation coming off of, in a sense, moving into post-World War II also. That was shaped by the lack of having many things, wanting to share the bounty of life in America with many others. I can recall trips to the farm, if you've heard references to. Early on in their life, as the sons had mentioned, they purchased a farm in upstate New York, very close to Cornell University. And on occasion, they would spend weeks there during the summers. And during their summer hiatus, they would invite black scholars over them for literally little mini retreats. So I remember sitting under the feet of people like John Henry Clark, Joseph Ben Yakima. But that was the type of environment that was created around Wellness Center. And for those who may not be familiar with those things, I'm going to give you 1 or 2 citations for each of them, just briefly to give you some idea of their contributions. For example, John Henry Clark, many of us view him and Dr. Ben as the 2 most premier scholars of the African experience in America. Dr. Clark, in his books like The African World Revolution and Notes on that African Revolution, he also wrote a pioneering book, which has been accounted for many of the actions you heard happening in America over the last 18 months. One of his books was called Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust, subtitled Slavery and the Rise of World European Capitalism. Dr. Ben gave us a book entitled, on the many books, Black Man of the Nile and His Men, which really helped all of us, in a sense, closing the gap of information that we have been deprived of all of our lives. And that is, who were the African people? I often tell a story that in 1961, when I entered college, my image of people from Africa was what we would see on the little news and pictures every once in a while. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have social messaging, we didn't have instant news. The image I had of Africans were people who ate Christian missionaries and went bones in their noses, until I arrived at Delaware State in 1961. And among several hundred classmates, all of the American students were wearing jeans and t-shirts and sneaks. There were 4 young men in the class who wore business suits every day at orientation. They said they were freshmen. But we said, you're just like faculty. They said, no, we are from Africa. And in Africa, this is how we honor our teachers and education. Then we looked at each other as if to say, we thought they were the primitive savages. But the signals that we were receiving really defined us as being primitives. One other person that I recall, because her work plays very much into the analysis of the current day. I met Sharshi McIntyre, who was Judy, important people like Sharshi, Dr. Ben, Dr. James Henry Clark, Mary Lou Williams, who was in residence at Duke University, who wrote Black, Sacred, Catholic Mass music. They now have the Mary Lou Williams Center at Duke University. Hazel Scott, the famed pianist, who was also one of the wives of Reverend Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who went on to become Congressman Adam Clayton Powell When I talk to leaders, I often ask students how many of you have anything that is considered federal financial aid. Because that black congressman coming from that new congressional district in Parliament, Reverend Adam Clayton Powell, is really the godfather for all student financial aid for example. Reverend Manley, Dr. Michael Manley, who was every 2 years or so, he would come and speak exclusively at City Hall. When he did, members of the Jamaican community would flood our auditoriums. Dr. Betty Shabazz, the wife of El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz, better known to most of you as Malcolm X. As we close out, I want to quote the words of Michael as he writes to us in 6:10. When he asks the question, what does God require of us all? And I'd like to just summarize that literally in 3 sentences for you. He asks us to love justice, to cultivate mercy, and to walk humbly with God. I often remind people of the audacity of the moment that I may control at some point in time. If people who adhere to a racist worldview think that their supremacy is going to last beyond the time that we put them into the earth, they have sadly deluded themselves. Because I believe firmly that according to the Word of God, those who practice those types of things have committed sin in the eyes of God. And that nobody who claims to be about racist, if that were the case, or that supremacy is actually the natural order of things. As we have witnessed in this country, let's say ever since maybe 20 November of 2016, America needs to repent. And that repentance cannot come too soon. Because as Dr. Martin Luther King said, we cannot surely live together as brothers and sisters. We shall all perish as fools. I want to thank you very much for coming out in this time, in this space, to honor the spirit of Sister Judy Miller. The last 10 sites to close us out in that African tradition as we move forward.